Friendsify, you want to watch super hit movie Bruce Almighty in English, then you must like this video. If you are visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Friends, in today's video, the movie we're going to talk about is called Bruce Almighty. We will talk about what this movie is and where you can watch it, all the interesting facts about this movie in today's video. I am going to tell you, I also going to give you all the information on which OT platform or on which satellite channel you will watch this movie. Also, we will talk in detail about the technical department, music department, pre-production, filming, post-production, budget, box office, collection of this film. We will also talk about the story of this film, and I will also give you a small review of the story of this film. Apart from this, we will discuss about the facts of this film, storyline, star cast, actors' performance in the film, and which character has played which role. That's why I request you friends to watch this video till the end, so let's start the video. Bruce Almighty is a 2003 American fantasy comedy film directed by Tom Shadyac and written by Steve Coren, Mark O'Keefe, and Steve Oedekerk. The film stars Jim Carrey as Bruce Nolan, a down-on-his-luck television reporter who complains to God, played by Morgan Freeman, that he is not doing his job correctly and is offered the chance to try being God himself for 1 week. It co-stars Jennifer Aniston, Philip Baker Hall, and Catherine Bell. The film is Shadyac and Carrey's third collaboration after Ace Ventura: Pet Detective 1994 and Liar Liar 1997. When released in American theaters on May 23, 2003, Bruce Almighty received mixed reviews from critics but was a box office success and grossed $86.4 million in its opening weekend, a Memorial Day record at the time for. The film surprised the industry's pundits when it beat The Matrix Reloaded the following weekend. It went on to gross $484 million worldwide, becoming the fifth highest-grossing film of 2003. Evan Almighty, a spin-off sequel focusing on Steve Carell's character, with Shadyac and Oedekerk returning to direct and write, respectively, and Freeman also reprising his role, was released on June 22, 2007. In addition, 3 Indian remakes of the film, Arai N 305 Kadaval, Tamil-speaking, God Tusi Great Ho, Hindi-speaking, and Krishnarjuna, Telugu-speaking, were released in 2008. Plot. Bruce Nolan is a television field reporter for Eyewitness News on WKBW-TV in Buffalo, New York, but desires to be a news anchorman, succeeding the retiring Pete Feynman. When Bruce's rival Evan Baxter is given the job, a vulgar on-camera outburst leads to Bruce's dismissal from the station. After a series of misfortunes, Bruce complains to God that he's the one that should be fired. Bruce receives a message on his pager which takes him to an empty warehouse where he meets God in human form. God offers to give Bruce his powers to prove that he is doing the job correctly. God tells Bruce that he cannot tell others he has God's powers to avoid the media attention, nor can he use the powers to alter free will. Bruce is initially jubilant with the powers, using them for personal gains, such as regaining his previous job and impressing his girlfriend Grace Connolly. Bruce finds ways of using his powers around Buffalo to cause miraculous events to occur at otherwise mundane events that he covers, such as discovering Jimmy Hoffa's body during a segment on police training or causing a meteorite to harmlessly land near a cook-off, earning him the nickname Mr. Exclusive and making the Buffalo Sabres win the Stanley Cup. Bruce then causes Evan to embarrass himself on air, causing Evan to be fired in favor of Bruce as the new anchor. Bruce begins to hear voices in his head and re-encounters God, who explains the voices are prayers that Bruce must deal with. Bruce creates a computerized email-like system to receive the prayers and respond, but finds that the influx is far too many for him to handle and sets the program to answer every prayer yes automatically. Bruce attends a party celebrating his promotion. When Grace arrives, she finds Bruce kissing his co-anchor, Susan Ortega, after she forcefully comes on to him and quickly leaves. Bruce follows her, trying to use his powers to convince her to stay, but cannot influence her free will. As Bruce looks around, he realizes that Buffalo has fallen into chaos due to his actions. Parts of the city believe the apocalypse is nearly upon Earth due to the meteor strikes, while a large number of people, all having prayed to win the multi-million-dollar lottery and received a meager amount in return, have started rioting in the streets. Bruce returns to God, who explains that he cannot solve all the problems and Bruce must figure out a way himself. Bruce then starts to help others without using his powers, including having Evan reinstated as anchor. He returns to his computer at home and goes about answering prayers earnestly. As he reads through them, he finds prayers from Grace, wishing for his success and well-being. As Bruce reads it, another prayer from Grace arrives, this one wishing not to be in love with him anymore. Stunned by this development, Bruce walks alone on a highway asking God to take back his powers and leaving his fate in his hands. Bruce is suddenly hit by a truck and regains consciousness in a white void. God appears and asks Bruce what he really wants. Bruce admits that he only wants to make sure Grace finds a man that will make her happy. God agrees, and Bruce finds himself in the hospital where his doctors help him recover. Grace arrives at the hospital and reconciles with Bruce. Following his recovery, Bruce returns to his field reporting job, but decides to take more pleasure in the simple stories in Buffalo instead. Cast: Jim Carrey as Bruce Nolan, Morgan Freeman as God, Jennifer Aniston as Grace Connolly, Bruce's girlfriend, Philip Baker Hall as Jack Baylor, Catherine Bell as Susan Ortega, Bruce's co-anchor, Lisa Ann Walter as Debbie Connolly, Grace's sister, Steve Carell, credited as Stephen Carell, as Evan Baxter, Bruce's rival, Nora Dunn as Ally Lohman, Eddie Jemison as Bobby, Sally Kirkland as Anita Mann, Lou Felder as Pete Feynman, Eyewitness News veteran anchorman, Paul Satterfield as Dallas Coleman, Micah Stephen Williams as Boy on Bike, Tony Bennett as himself, Carlos Sanchez as Juan Valdez, John Murphy as himself, Madeline Lovejoy as Zoe, Noel Guglielmi as Hood, Annie Wershing as Woman at Party. Production. In June 2000, it was announced that Universal Pictures had paid over $1 million for a spec script titled Bruce Almighty, with the intention of positioning the script as a directing vehicle for Tom Shadyac via his Universal-based production company, Shady Acres. Jim Carrey signed on to star in March 2002, with Steve Odekirk rewriting the script. Previously, Carrey had been slated to star in another comedy for Universal titled Dog Years to be directed by Gary Ross, but following that film's cancellation, Universal was eager to get Carrey onto another project. Filming of Buffalo was done in the New York Street at Universal Studios Hollywood. The restaurant with Tony Bennett was filmed at Cicada in the James Oviatt Building, downtown Los Angeles. The spa scene with Jennifer Aniston was filmed in the Schoen Building at the Japanese Garden in Los Angeles. Release: Bruce Almighty was released on May 23, 2003 by Universal Pictures. Universal handled distribution in the United States and Canada, although they were originally planned to distribute the film worldwide, while Spyglass Entertainment handled sales rights internationally. Buena Vista International acquired distribution rights in a majority of regions except in Scandinavia, Portugal, and Japan, where it was handled by distributors who already held deals with Spyglass in those respective territories. United International Pictures and Pony Canyon respectively handled theatrical and home video rights in Japan, while SF Studios handled Scandinavian distribution through subsidiaries AB Svensk Film Industry in Sweden, SF Film AS in Denmark, and FS Film Oy in Finland. Home media. Bruce Almighty was released on DVD and VHS on November 25, 2003 by Universal Studios Home Video 16. The DVD version features separate widescreen and full-screen versions, along with Dolby Digital and DTS audio tracks. It was later released on Blu-ray. Reception. Box office. Bruce Almighty earned $67.9 million during its opening weekend, which made it the highest for a Jim Carrey film, surpassing How the Grinch Stole Christmas. This record would be held until the opening of Sonic the Hedgehog 2 in 2022. At the time, it was one of 3 Universal films of 2003 to make opening weekends of $50 million, joining Too Fast, Too Furious, and Hulk. In its first 4 days, the film generated a total of $86.4 million, becoming the second highest Memorial Day weekend debut behind The Lost World: Jurassic Park. It opened in the #1 spot at the box office, beating The Matrix Reloaded. The film would be dethroned by Finding Nemo in its second weekend, declining by 45.1% and making $37.3 million. The film was released in the United Kingdom on June 27, 2003, and topped the country's box office that weekend. There it made a total of $8.3 million, beating Batman Forever to have the highest opening weekend for a Jim Carrey film in the country. Bruce Almighty joined The Matrix Reloaded, Finding Nemo, X2, and Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, to become the first 5 films to earn over $200 million at the box office in one summer season. By the end of its theatrical run, the film had made $242 million domestically and a total $484 million worldwide, making it Aniston and Carrey's highest-grossing film worldwide, as well as the 5th highest-grossing film of 2003. It continued to be Carrey's highest-grossing film worldwide until March 2025, when Sonic the Hedgehog 3 surpassed it. Critical response? On Rotten Tomatoes, the film has an approval rating of 48% based on 191 reviews, with an average rating of 5.7/10. The site's critical consensus reads, "Carrey is hilarious in the slapstick scenes, but Bruce Almighty gets bogged down in treacle." On Metacritic, it has a weighted average score of 46 out of 100, based on 35 critics, indicating mixed or average reviews. Audiences surveyed by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of A on an A+ to F scale. Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times gave the film 3 out of 4 stars, calling it a charmer, the kind of movie where Bruce learns that while he may not ever make a very good god, the experience may indeed make him a better television newsman. Ebert praised Aniston's performance. Aniston, as a sweet kindergarten teacher and fiancée, shows again after The Good Girl that she really will have a movie career. Variety's Robert Kohler gave the film a mixed review. There's remarkably little done with a premise snatched from high-concept heaven, adding yet another file to the growing cabinet of underrealized comedies. The Los Angeles Times gave it a negative review and called it not so mighty. Chuck Rudolph of Slant magazine said, "In several ways, the movie is an apathetic revision of The Truman Show, with Carrey starring as both Truman and Christof." Controversies. The film was banned in Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Kuwait, and Qatar because of its portrayal of God as an ordinary man and its being blasphemous to Islam. Bans in both Malaysia and Egypt were eventually lifted after the nation's censorship boards gave the film their highest rating, 18 PL in the case of Malaysia. As God contacts Bruce using an actual phone number rather than one in the standard fictional 555 telephone exchange, several people and groups sharing this number received hundreds of phone calls from people wanting to talk to God, including a church in North Carolina, U.S., where the minister was named Bruce, a Florida woman who threatened to sue Universal Pictures, a pastor in northern Wisconsin, and a man running a sandwich shop in Manchester, England. The producers noted that the number was not in use in the area code in the film's story, but did not check anywhere else. For the home video and television versions of the film, the number was changed to the fictional 555-0123. There is about Jim Carrey a desperate urgency that can be very funny as he plunges with manic intensity after his needs and desires. In Bruce Almighty, he plays a man for whom the most important thing on earth is to become an anchor on a Buffalo TV station. When he fails to achieve this pinnacle, he vents his anger at the very heavens themselves, challenging God to show and explain himself. One could argue that Bruce Nolan, Carrey's character, is not necessarily qualified to be an anchor, on the basis of 2 remote reports we see him delivering, one from the scene of a chocolate chip cookie of record-breaking size, the other from on board an anniversary cruise of the Maid of the Mist, the famous Niagara Falls tour boat. During the cruise, he learns while on the air, live, that he will not be getting the coveted anchor job, and goes ballistic, even uttering the dread F word in his dismay. Now that may argue that he is a loose cannon and not fit to anchor anyway, although he would be replacing a man whose primary skill seems to be smiling. Nevertheless, in anger and grief, and facing the loss of the love of his faithful girlfriend Grace, Jennifer Aniston, he calls upon God, and God answers. God is, in this case, a man in a white suit, played by Morgan Freeman, with what can only be described as godlike patience with Bruce. Since Bruce is so dissatisfied with the job God is doing, God turns the controls of the universe over to him, or at least the controls over his immediate neighborhood in Buffalo, although at one point these limited powers seem to extend directly above Buffalo to such an extent that Bruce is able to change the distance of the moon, causing tidal waves in Japan. Bruce Almighty, directed by Tom Shadyac and written by Steve Odekirk, Steve Coren, and Mark O'Keefe, is a charmer, the kind of movie where Bruce learns that while he may not ever make a very good God, the experience may indeed make him a better television newsman. The problem with playing God, the movie demonstrates, is that when such powers are entrusted to a human, short-term notions tend to be valued higher than long-term improvement plans. Consider, for example, the way Bruce deals with a dog that pees in the house. The payoff shot, showing the dog learning a new way to use the newspaper, had me laughing so loudly that people were looking at me. And consider Bruce's methods for dealing with traffic jams, which work fine for Bruce, but not so well for everyone else. When you're God, you can't think only of yourself. Freeman plays God with a quality of warm detachment that is just about right, I think. You get the feeling that even while he's giving Bruce the free ride, he has a hand on the wheel, like a driver's training instructor. Aniston, as a sweet kindergarten teacher and fiancée, shows again, after The Good Girl, that she really will have a movie career, despite the small-minded cavils of those who think she should have stayed on television. She can play comedy, which is not easy, and she can keep up with Carrey while not simply mirroring his zaniness. That's one of those gifts like being able to sing one song while typing the words to another. Whether Bruce Almighty is theologically sound, I will leave to the better qualified. My own suspicion is that if you have God's power even in a small area like Buffalo, it's likely to set things spinning weirdly everywhere. If a butterfly can flap its wings in Samoa and begin a chain of events leading to a tropical storm in the Caribbean, think what could happen when Bruce goes to work. Review. Bruce Almighty, love me, love me, love me, love me. The speaker is Jim Carrey. He plays Bruce, an unemployed TV newshound who has been granted short-term divine powers by God, and he's trying out his new divine prerogative of command on Jennifer Aniston, the girlfriend who has just left him. He is, of course, addressing all of us in the audience as well. And like Jennifer, we find that direct orders won't work, even for the Almighty. This has some very funny moments and lines in its first act, and then jettisons the comedy in favor of a self-important, deadly serious feel-good ending. Carrey's character is a wacky reporter, sacked after a foul-mouthed meltdown on air when he learns he has been passed over for the news anchor's job. He rails against God, who appears to him in the ineffably wise form of Morgan Freeman, offering Bruce a chance to see for himself how tricky it is to be in charge of the store. The ultimate Uncle Tom role for Freeman? Not exactly, but it's the ultimate notional high-status casting for African-American actors. The sort of thing which gets them walk-on roles as judges and police chiefs in otherwise all-white movies. So while Morgan goes off on his summer vacation, Bruce is God and lazily sends out a blanket yes response to the prayers he gets, which turn out to be solely about the lottery and the local sports team. It would be taking the whole thing too seriously to notice that Morgan Freeman never says why he permits bad things to happen to good people. Yet a movie like, say, Groundhog Day was more rigorous in the way it imagined its supernatural consequences. Funnier, too. The prospect of Jim Carrey as a guy substituting for a vacationing God might thrill his fans and send tremors into the hearts of his detractors, but the reality of Bruce Almighty won't exactly rock anyone's world. There's remarkably little done with a premise snatched from high-concept heaven, adding yet another file to the growing cabinet of under-realized comedies. Carrey's performance as an ambitious TV reporter challenging the man upstairs remains mostly on track throughout, but lacks his characteristic ratio of comic fireballs. Pick's theatrical horizon looks reliably solid, but doesn't show signs of being a breakout summer hit. The rematching of Carrey and director Tom Shadyac shows both of in a relatively subdued state, particularly from their younger Ace Ventura Pet Detective days. With both having ventured unsuccessfully into pure drama just prior to this project, The Majestic for Carrey, Dragonfly for Shadyac, the joint return to comedy would have seemed like an elixir. Instead of rejuvenation, though, Bruce Almighty is the routine work of veterans. As Bruce Nolan, funny man reporter for a Buffalo TV station, Carrey has a chance to ham it up in front of 2 cameras at once. Bruce is frustrated because he believes he's paid his dues, is pushing 40, and sees rival reporter Evan Baxter, Daily Show regular Stephen Carell, as poised to beat him out for the nightly anchor position. He's a worrywart to G.F. Grace's Jennifer Aniston domesticating calm, and is convinced after Evan does snare the anchor job that God is out to get him, or worse, just ignores him and the mediocre life he shares with Grace. Shadyac works up a few visual jokes, such as a resilient pager by which God, Morgan Freeman, in his best ice cream suit, first contacts Bruce to set up a meeting, but little of it is either magical or uproarious. Some jokey images, such as a pun on the parting of the Red Sea, grab the imagination, while others, from an exploding file cabinet that contains God's data on Bruce to Bruce's non-house-trained pooch, a nod to Ace Ventura, appear disconnected. Out to teach this egotistical human a lesson, God takes a holiday and allows Bruce to take over the reins for a while. Typically, Bruce performs supernatural acts to please only himself, resulting in amazing sex for Grace. But since she's led to believe Bruce is about to propose to her, then crushed when she realizes his eyes remain solely on Evan's job, she dumps him, leading to Bruce's emotional downfall and the inevitable third-act messages regarding human goodness, which are at least less gooey than those in Shadyac's Patch Adams. The potential for Carrey as God to wreak comic havoc is not only kept under a tight rein, it remains inconsistently realized. Shadyac and writers Steve Coren and Mark O'Keefe, also credited with the story, along with Steve Odekirk, never work out the logic of the greater concept. When, for instance, Bruce uses his powers to bring the moon closer to the Earth for the right romantic touch, it seems to trigger only one natural disaster instead of the thousands that would surely happen. Yet apparently, without filling in viewers on many of the off-screen calamities, the movie subsequently shows local doomsayers howling about the end of the world. This unsure approach carries over to the cast, many of whom are underused. Grace is cornered into the position of merely reacting to Bruce, and Aniston can only stare and remain starkly unfunny. Freeman appears born in his suit and takes it on with cool gravitas, as does Philip Baker Hall as Bruce's news director boss. Among supporter thespians, Carell has by far the prime laugh moments, while fellow comic Nora Dunn's nearly invisible role must have been discarded in the cutting room. The production gives Buffalo and environs, much of it backlot, with Niagara Falls locations, the sunny Chamber of Commerce treatment. Production designer Linda DeSena's depiction of God's office as a giant all-white warehouse is far more inspired than John Debney's sleep-inducing music. Her name, Grace, is symbolic in itself, reflecting the spiritual concept of unearned mercy and favor. Bruce's journey toward appreciating grace mirrors his journey toward accepting grace in a theological sense. It is only when he begins to embody unconditional love and let go of his selfish desires that he is reunited with her. The idea that true love cannot be compelled, only nurtured, is echoed throughout the narrative. Symbolism plays a subtle but powerful role in reinforcing these themes. The character of God, portrayed by Morgan Freeman, is perhaps the film's most potent symbol. Dressed in white, calm, and composed, God is neither vengeful nor detached. Instead, he is a patient teacher who uses Bruce's flaws as opportunities for learning. The setting where Bruce meets God, a bright, sterile workspace filled with cleaning tools, symbolizes the concept of divine maintenance, suggesting that running the world is more about caretaking than ruling. This depiction of God breaks with traditional iconography and reflects a modern, humanized version of spirituality where divinity is less about awe and more about guidance. The recurring motif of the cookie crumbling also operates symbolically, used at first as a sarcastic sign-off to express frustration with life's disappointments, it later becomes a statement of acceptance. By the end of the film, when Bruce uses the phrase with genuine peace, it symbolizes his shift in mindset. He no longer sees life as something that happens to him, but as something he participates in with grace and humility. The cookie becomes a metaphor for life, messy, unpredictable, and beyond total control, but still sweet and worth savoring. Another symbolic scene is Bruce's interaction with prayers. When he opens a filing cabinet to discover all the prayers related to him, the drawer shoots out across the room, knocking him over. This visual gag also functions as a metaphor for being overwhelmed by the needs and desires of others. Later, when prayers appear in the form of emails, Bruce's attempt to automate the process reflects modern society's reliance on quick fixes and digital detachment. His ultimate realization that each prayer represents a unique human struggle deepens the film's spiritual message. True compassion requires presence, not automation. Water is another recurring symbol in the film. The rainstorm that leads to Bruce's accident marks his lowest point, literally and metaphorically, but rain also signifies cleansing and renewal. His resurrection following the storm is symbolic of baptism, representing a new beginning and a rebirth into a more self-aware and humble life. These subtle elements help anchor the film's emotional and spiritual journey in visual and symbolic language. Bruce Almighty may not be categorized as a visually experimental or a vanguard film, but its visual style and cinematography play a critical role in supporting its themes, guiding the tone, and reinforcing the fantastical elements of the story. The look and feel of the film are crafted to reflect both the grounded nature of Bruce Nolan's ordinary life and the supernatural power he temporarily wields. Cinematographer Dean Sumler, known for his work on films ranging from epic dramas to high-concept comedies, brought a deliberate and thoughtful approach to the film's visual storytelling. Every camera movement, lighting setup, and framing decision contributes to the emotional and narrative rhythm of Bruce's journey. The film opens with a bright, relatively neutral palette that mirrors Bruce's middle-class everyday world. His life is full of soft, cool lighting that gives the sense of realism without drawing attention to itself. The early scenes, especially those set in the news station or Bruce's apartment, are filmed with steady, traditional camera work. This grounded style reflects Bruce's ordinary status and sense of being trapped in a mundane existence. Colors are muted, realistic, and functional. The composition is often tight and contained, reinforcing Bruce's feelings of being boxed in both emotionally and professionally. As the story progresses and Bruce receives divine powers, the cinematography subtly shifts to accommodate the change in tone and scope. When Bruce first discovers he can manipulate the physical world, the film begins to incorporate more dynamic and fluid camera movements. One of the early moments that marks this shift is the traffic jamming scene, where Bruce uses his powers to part a line of cars like the Red Sea. The camera glides forward with him, capturing his confident stride and creating a sense of grandeur. These visual changes help signal to the audience that Bruce has crossed into a new realm of experience, even if the story remains rooted in familiar settings. The use of lighting becomes increasingly expressive during Bruce's divine phase when he first meets God in the celestial maintenance facility. The scene is bathed in stark white light, creating a dreamlike, almost sterile atmosphere. This choice of lighting serves multiple purposes. It emphasizes the purity and otherworldliness of the space, makes Morgan Freeman's white suit blend into the background in an almost ghost-like fashion, and visually separates the realm of God from the earthy reality of Bruce's daily life. The clean, bright design of God's office, with its infinite white expanses and spotless floors, contrasts sharply with the clutter and color of Bruce's apartment, visually reinforcing the gap between the divine and the human. The cinematography also employs symbolic framing techniques throughout the film. Bruce is often centered in the frame during scenes where he is feeling self-important or empowered. These symmetrical compositions subtly convey his sense of control and ego. However, during moments of vulnerability or failure, the camera tends to frame Bruce off-center or place him in larger, more overwhelming environments. One example is the rainstorm scene where Bruce walks alone, drenched and defeated. He is visually dwarfed by the street, cars, and looming sky, symbolizing his loss of control and connection. The decision to make him physically small within the frame amplifies the emotional impact of the scene and reflects his internal turmoil. Another notable aspect of the visual style is the film's use of contrast between natural and supernatural moments. Everyday scenes are lit and shot in a way that mirrors real life. But whenever Bruce performs miraculous acts, the film often uses stylized lighting cues, camera zooms, or slow motion to highlight the moment. For example, when Bruce pulls the moon closer to the Earth to impress Grace, the entire sequence is lit with a romantic, ethereal glow. The exaggerated moonlight casts soft highlights on their faces and fills the sky with an almost surreal quality. This not only romanticizes the moment, but hints at the absurdity and potential danger of Bruce's power. Visual effects also play a key role in defining the film style, particularly in scenes involving divine intervention or fantastical results. While some of the effects may appear simple by modern standards, they were integrated carefully to blend with the film's comedic tone and avoid overwhelming the narrative. The visual effects team focused on enhancing practical sets and performances rather than creating spectacle for its own sake. The parting of the tomato soup in the restaurant, the reconfiguration of Bruce's digital prayer system, and the infamous dog on the toilet gag all use effects to inject humor without breaking the film's grounded visual continuity. Color also plays a significant symbolic role. As Bruce becomes more immersed in his godlike role, the color palette surrounding him changes subtly. His clothing becomes lighter, his environment's cleaner or more luxurious, reflecting his growing ego and detachment from everyday concerns. Conversely, when Grace leaves him and Bruce falls into despair, his surroundings become darker and more subdued. Shadows are more prominent, the lighting colder, reflecting his emotional state. This emotional use of color adds depth to the storytelling, without being overt or distracting. The cinematography also shows restraint in moments of emotional gravity. One example is the hospital scene at the end of the film, when Bruce wakes up after being hit by a truck. Instead of flashy camera work or dramatic lighting, the scene is shot with a still, intimate perspective. The camera lingers on Bruce's face, capturing his vulnerability and gratitude. The subdued lighting and close-ups make the moment feel real and heartfelt, allowing the hyping audience to experience the emotional payoff of Bruce's transformation. It is a quiet visual moment that stands out, precisely because of its simplicity. Another highlight of the visual style is the use of recurring visual motifs. For example, filing cabinets and sticky notes appear multiple times, symbolizing the overwhelming nature of divine responsibilities. When Bruce opens the prayer filing cabinet and is knocked over by the endless drawer, it's both a gag and a visual metaphor for being overwhelmed by the needs of the world. Later, when prayers come in as emails, the glowing computer screen and the flood of messages reflect the impersonal, chaotic nature of mass communication and the challenge of individual empathy. These motifs subtly tie into the film's themes of responsibility, awareness, and the limits of control. Even the use of architecture and set design enhances the visual storytelling. Bruce's apartment, cluttered and slightly chaotic, mirrors his early emotional state. God's warehouse, vast and gleaming white, conveys order and infinite capacity. The new station, with its glass walls, artificial lights, and framed images, represents a world of appearances and performance. Each location is shot in a way that emphasizes its symbolic role in the story, reinforcing character development and theme through visual choices. The soundtrack and sound design of Bruce Almighty play a crucial yet often understated role in shaping the emotional, comedic, and thematic tones of the film. While the film's premise relies heavily on its visual comedy and performances, the audio landscape, both the music and the design of diegetic sound, amplifies the storytelling by supporting character arcs, enhancing humor, and subtly reinforcing the film's spiritual and emotional dimensions. Composer John Debney created the original score, and a carefully curated selection of songs by various artists complements the score to create a sonic backdrop that is both familiar and emotionally effective. John Debney's score for Bruce Almighty is not overly intrusive or grandiose. Instead, it is modest, melodic, and versatile, allowing the narrative and dialogue to take center stage while still shaping the mood of key moments. Debbie uses a blend of orchestral and light modern elements to provide the film with a warm, sometimes whimsical atmosphere. The musical themes associated with Bruce's journey shift throughout the film to mirror his character development. Early in the movie, the score underlines Bruce's frustration and clumsiness with light, staccato motifs and comedic timing. These musical cues often match the rhythm of visual gags and physical comedy, enhancing the punchlines without overwhelming them. As Bruce receives God's powers and begins to test them out, the score evolves into something more playful and grand. A sense of wonder and mischief enters the musical language, almost like the soundtrack of a child discovering a new toy. This is particularly evident during scenes where Bruce experiments with miracles, parting traffic, enlarging his chest in the eye, or creating romantic atmospheres with the moon. The music often adds a layer of exaggerated pomp or magic to these scenes, highlighting their absurdity while maintaining a lighthearted tone. However, the most impactful musical cues occur when the film shifts into more emotional territory. As Bruce begins to understand the consequences of his actions and confronts the limitations of his power, the score becomes more contemplative. Debbie introduces slower, more emotional string arrangements to underscore Bruce's vulnerability and inner transformation. One memorable moment is the hospital scene near the end of the film, where Bruce prays for Grace's happiness. The music here is subtle and moving, marked by soft piano and string progressions that evoke humility and genuine remorse. It helps transform a potentially melodramatic scene into a sincere and affecting moment, drawing the audience into Bruce's emotional world. In addition to the original score, Bruce Almighty features a variety of pre-existing songs from popular artists strategically placed to enhance the film's emotional and comedic impact. The use of contemporary and classic songs helps ground the film in a relatable cultural context, while also punctuating key moments with familiar emotional cues. One of the most notable uses of popular music is the inclusion of I Am by the Goo Dolls. The song's lyrics and tone resonate deeply with the film's themes of identity, purpose, and transformation. It plays during a key montage where Bruce begins to understand the responsibilities of his new role and starts attempting to do good for others, rather than just himself. Another standout musical moment occurs when One of Us by Joan Osborne plays. This song, which famously asks the question, what if God was one of us, fits the film's premise perfectly. It is used both for thematic reinforcement and as an ironic counterpoint to Bruce's experience as a mortal man trying to play God. The inclusion of this song reflects the film's ongoing engagement with spiritual questions framed in a way that is accessible and culturally resonant. The film also uses upbeat, humorous tracks to accentuate the comedic energy of certain scenes. For instance, James and Brown's I Got You, I Feel Good plays when Bruce begins to fully embrace his divine abilities and enjoy the thrill of his new power. The infectious energy of the song, combined with Carr's physical comedy, elevates the scene into a joyous and exaggerated spectacle. Music is not just background here. It becomes a character in itself, expressing what Bruce is feeling in a way that dialogue alone cannot convey. The sound design of Bruce Almighty also plays an essential supporting role particularly in differentiating the ordinary world from the supernatural elements Bruce interacts with. During scenes where Bruce performs miracles, the use of specific sound cues, such as magical whooshes, shimmering tones, or amplified ambient effects, signals the use of divine power. These effects are often exaggerated or stylized to match the film's comedic tone. For example, when Bruce parts the tomato soup in the restaurant, a dramatic sound swell mimics the grandeur of a biblical event. Even though the action itself is absurdly mundane, this contrast between sound and action adds to the film's humor and highlights the theme of taking responsibility seriously, even when situations appear trivial. Sound is also used to indicate Bruce's mental state. During scenes of frustration or anger, ambient sound is often lowered or drowned out to focus on Bruce's internal thoughts. In contrast, during moments of revelation or spiritual clarity, the film often employs a swelling musical cue or fades in natural sounds such as wind, birds, or soft echoes to signal a deeper connection to something beyond himself. This subtle auditory shift helps guide the audience through Bruce's internal journey without needing heavy exposition. Dialogue mixing and vocal performance also play an important part in the film's audio landscape. Jim Carrey's voice is expressive and often exaggerated for comedic effect, and the sound mixing ensures that his vocal delivery remains clear and dynamic even during chaotic scenes, whether he is shouting at the heavens, muttering sarcastic quips, or engaging in sincere prayer. The mix emphasizes his emotional intensity. Similarly, Morgan Freeman's calm and resonant voice is mixed to have a slightly ethereal quality in certain scenes, particularly when he speaks as God. This slight reverb or sonic enhancement lends a divine resonance to his words, subtly reinforcing his role without the need for visual effects. The film also makes strong use of silence and minimal sound, especially during emotional climaxes. One of the most powerful uses of silence occurs in the scene where Bruce is hit by a truck. As he lies in the street, there is a brief moment where the world goes completely quiet. No background noise, no music, before he finds himself in the celestial realm. This pause in sound not only emphasizes the severity of the moment, but also allows the audience to feel the weight of Bruce's surrender and transition. It's an example of how restraint in sound design can create as much impact as an elaborate musical cue. Throughout the film, transitions between musical and environmental sounds are smooth and intentional. The audio editing ensures that emotional tone shifts from comedy to seriousness or from chaos to calm are supported by the soundtrack without jarring the viewer. The flow of sound and music creates a consistent rhythm that mirrors Bruce's journey, maintaining engagement without overwhelming the narrative or the performances. Bruce Almighty was released in May 2003 and quickly became one of the year's most commercially and successful films. With its high-concept premise, star power, and Jim Carrey, and a blend of comedy with light philosophical and spiritual themes, the film drew widespread attention. Its reception, however, was mixed across different spectrums. Critics, religious commentators, and audiences all had varying reactions that reflected the complexity of combining slaps to comedy with questions about divine power and human responsibility. Despite its polarizing reviews, Bruce Almighty left a lasting mark on early 2000 cinema. Commercially, the film was a major success. It grossed over $480 million worldwide on a production budget of approximately $80 million, making it one of the highest-grossing films of the year. Much of this success was attributed to Jim Carrey's global appeal and the strength of the film's marketing campaign, which effectively positioned it as a family-friendly, inspirational comedy with mass-market appeal. Audiences were particularly drawn to the idea of a regular man gaining God's powers, a premise that promised comedy, introspection, and wish fulfillment all in one package. From a critical standpoint, Bruce Almighty received a mixture of praise and critique. Many reviewers complimented Jim Carrey's energetic and charismatic performance, noting that his comedic timing and physical expressiveness were well suited to the role of Bruce Nolan. Critics often mention that Carrey managed to bring emotional depth to a character who could have easily remained a one-dimensional clown. This balance between heartfelt sincerity and slapstick humor was seen as a testament to Carr's range as an actor. Critics also highlighted Morgan Freeman's performance as a standout element. His portrayal of God was widely regarded as both warm and authoritative, blending wisdom, wit, and benevolence. His calm presence acted as a counterweight to Carr's manic energy, providing a stabilizing force within the narrative. However, not all reviews were favorable. Many critics argued that the film didn't fully deliver on the potential of its premise. While the idea of a man receiving God's powers opens the door to deep philosophical inquiry, critics felt that the film remained too superficial in its exploration of such themes. Rather than delving into the ethical or spiritual implications of omnipotence, Bruce Almighty often leaned into comedic gags and romantic subplots. Some reviews described it as a missed opportunity, a film that flirted with meaningful ideas but ultimately played it safe in favor of crowd-pleasing laughs. One recurring criticism was that the film struggled to balance tone. The shift between outrageous comedy and earnest life lessons was jarring for some viewers. For instance, scenes involving Bruce manipulating his environment for laughs could feel tonally inconsistent when juxtaposed with more serious moments, such as Bruce's prayer for Grace's happiness or his confrontation with his own selfishness. Some reviewers described the movie as having an identity crisis, unsure of whether it wanted to be a spiritual parable, a romantic comedy, or a vehicle for Jim Carr's improvisational antics. Religious communities had a particularly interesting reaction to the film. Despite early concerns about portraying God in a comedic context and giving divine power to a flawed human character, many religious viewers found the film to be respectful and even inspiring. Morgan Freeman's portrayal of God was widely praised in both religious and secular circles for its dignity and wisdom. The film's ultimate message that power should be used with compassion, that love requires free will, and that selflessness leads to true fulfillment resonated with many religious teachings. However, some conservative groups did object to the film's portrayal of God as too human or its irreverent humor, particularly during scenes that involve divine intervention in trivial or comedic situations. Audience scores tended to be more favorable than critical scores. Moviegoers appreciated the film's heart, humor, and accessible messaging. It became particularly popular among families and casual viewers who are looking for a feel-good film with a meaningful conclusion. Many people cited the film's final act as a turning point where Bruce's character transformation added emotional weight to the story and gave the film a sense of purpose beyond its comedy. The film's humor itself received mixed feedback. Fans of Jim Carrey appreciated his signature brand of over-the-top physical comedy, while others felt it was out of place in a story with spiritual undertones. Some critics argued that Carr's comedic style occasionally undermined the film's sincerity, while others believed it brought necessary levity to a potentially heavy-handed premise. Jennifer Aniston's performance as Grace also received generally positive reviews, with critics praising her ability to bring warmth and emotional credibility to a role that could have easily been overshadowed by Carr's theatrics. However, some felt that Grace was underdeveloped as a character, serving primarily as a catalyst for Bruce's growth rather than a fully realized individual. Another point of contention among critics was the film's screenplay. While the premise was universally praised as imaginative and original, the execution was seen by some as formulaic. The film followed a relatively standard character arc. A flawed protagonist gains power, misuses it, suffers consequences, and learns a life lesson. While effective, this structure didn't offer many surprises, and the film's predictability was cited as a drawback. The dialogue, though often witty and sharp, occasionally relied on cliches or overly sentimental lines. especially in scenes designed to tug at the heartstrings. The visual effects also drew commentary, with some critics noting that they were adequate but not groundbreaking. Given the film's fantastical premise, some expected more creative or visually ambitious sequences. Instead, the film opted for modest, mostly practical effects with occasional CGI enhancements. This choice helped maintain a grounded tone, but may have disappointed viewers expecting spectacle on the level of other early 2000s blockbusters. Despite these critiques, Bruce Almighty managed to secure a lasting place in popular culture and is often remembered more fondly in retrospect than its initial critical reception might suggest. Over time, it has gained a reputation as a thoughtful, entertaining film that manages to deliver laughs while encouraging viewers to think about personal responsibility, compassion, and the nature of faith. Awards-wise, Bruce Almighty did not receive major nominations from the Academy or major industry guilds, but it was acknowledged in more populist award shows. Jim Carrey received several nominations for his performance from MTV and Teen Choice Awards, reflecting the film's popularity with younger audiences. The film was also recognized in family-oriented award circuits for its wholesome message and accessible storytelling. These accolades reinforced its status as a crowd pleaser, even if it was not considered a critical darling. Bruce Almighty's legacy has grown steadily since its release in 2003, making it one of the more enduring comedies of the early 2000s. While it may not be regarded as a cinematic masterpiece by critical standards, its influence has been felt across multiple domains, including spiritual discourse, comedy, film, internet culture, and even in the careers of its cast and crew. The film's unique blending of comedy with spiritual exploration created a template that inspired other filmmakers to attempt similarly high-concept narratives grounded in moral or philosophical themes, while also helping to reshape public conversations about the portrayal of God and religion in mainstream cinema. One of the most immediate and tangible legacies of Bruce Almighty was the 2007 spin-off Evan Almighty, a quasi-sequel starring Steve Carell as Evan Baxter, a minor character from the original film. Although Jim Carrey declined to return, the filmmakers used the popularity of the Bruce Almighty universe to tell another divine comedy story. Evan Almighty followed a more overtly biblical storyline, with Evan being instructed by God to build an ark in preparation for a modern-day flood. While the film did not achieve the same critical or commercial success as its predecessor, it demonstrated the strength of the Bruce Almighty brand and its appeal to family-friendly audiences interested in spiritually themed narratives. Even though Evan Almighty did not have the cultural staying power of the original, its existence affirmed the viability of Bruce Almighty as a conceptual franchise and its capacity to support multiple storylines centered on divine encounters. Another part of Bruce Almighty's legacy lies in how it influenced public and cinematic portrayals of God. Morgan Freeman's performance as God was groundbreaking in its quiet confidence, warmth, and subtle humor. His depiction departed from the traditional image of an old, stern patriarch and instead presented a version of God that was approachable, wise, and empathetic. This portrayal not only resonated with audiences, but also reshaped how subsequent films and television shows would imagine divine figures. Freeman's God became so iconic that he reprised the role in Evan Almighty and was often referenced in pop culture whenever discussions of divine representation occurred. Even years later, Freeman's version of God is frequently cited as one of the most beloved and impactful cinematic depictions of a deity, influencing similar portrayals in both comedic and dramatic works. The film's themes of responsibility, humility, and the consequences of power also influenced the tone and narrative structure of later films that sought to mix comedy with deeper life lessons. Movies like Click, Yes Man, and even certain animated features borrowed from Bruce Almighty's formula. A central character is given extraordinary abilities, misuses them for personal gain, and eventually learns to become a better person by embracing empathy, and the selflessness. This narrative blueprint, though not exclusive to Bruce Almighty, was revitalized and popularized by its success, encouraging a wave of films that blended humor with moral storytelling in the mid-2000s and beyond. In terms of internet culture and mimetic impact, Bruce Almighty has had a surprisingly long-lasting presence. Scenes from the film, especially Jim, Carr's exaggerated facial expressions and physical comedy have become popular meme material. A particularly famous example is the scene where Bruce is rapidly typing responses to prayer emails, causing him to spiral into chaos. This moment has been widely used to represent online overload, stress, and multitasking, and has been circulated in meme form for over a decade. Additionally, the line, "It's good," from the scene where Bruce manipulates the moon for a romantic effect, became an early viral catchphrase and has since appeared in humorous edits and remixes online. The film also contributed to the growing trend of spiritual themes in mainstream entertainment during the early 2000s. While religious films had always existed, they were often confined to niche markets or explicitly evangelical audiences. Bruce Almighty demonstrated that a film could incorporate spiritual ideas and even the character of God, while still appealing to a broad secular audience. This opened the door for more spiritually tinged movies that did not require a religious label, such as The Shack, Heaven is for Real, and even more. Allegorical fare like Stranger Than Fiction. The film's ability to walk the line between entertainment and introspection without alienating faith-based or secular viewers was a balancing act that influenced future productions. In educational and community spaces, Bruce Almighty has often been used as a conversation starter. Teachers and religious leaders have incorporated clips or themes from the film into lessons about ethics, responsibility, and free will. Its accessible tone allows it to serve as an entry point into larger discussions about divine intervention, human agency, and the nature of prayer. This utility has contributed to the film's lasting relevance, especially in classrooms, youth groups, and interfaith dialogues. Bruce Almighty also played a significant role in solidifying Jim Carr's transition from purely slapstick comedy to more nuanced roles. While he had already begun this shift with films like The Truman Show and Man on the Moon, Bruce Almighty marked a moment when Carrey successfully combined his comedic talents with emotional vulnerability and a grounded character arc. This demonstrated his range to both audiences and filmmakers, paving the way for more dramatic performances in subsequent years. Though he would return to broader comedies afterward, the emotional undercurrents of Bruce's journey left an impression on his career trajectory and expanded perceptions of what he could achieve as an actor. The film's visual and narrative design also influenced the way high-concept comedies were structured in the following years. The blend of wish fulfillment fantasy with relatable everyday frustrations became a popular setup for movies throughout the 2000s and 2010s. Films like Bedazzled, Liar Liar, and even more modern entries like Free Guy or The Secret Life of Walter Mitty owes something to the precedent set by Bruce Almighty in making fantastical scenarios emotionally resonant and audience-friendly. Additionally, Bruce Almighty contributed to a broader conversation in Hollywood about how to incorporate spiritual and philosophical themes without leaning too heavily into religious messaging. This opened a pathway for mainstream studios to explore questions of faith, existence, and personal growth without alienating large segments of their wide audience. This approach influenced not just film, but also television, where shows like Joan of Arcadia and The Good Place echoed similar themes of divine influence and moral consequence within a comedic or dramatic framework. Merchandising and home media also played a part in Bruce Almighty's legacy. The film became a top-selling DVD and over the years has remained a staple in cable, television reruns, and streaming libraries. Its accessibility and rewatchability contributed to its growing appreciation, particularly among audiences who may have missed its theatrical release, but discovered it later through home viewing. The enduring demand for the film in digital and physical formats underscores its status as a comfort movie, one that offers humor, heart, and a message of hope, especially during challenging times. Bruce Almighty's lasting resonance with audiences can be attributed to more than just its star-studded cast or comedic tone. At its core, the film taps into universal human concerns, frustration with life's unfairness, the desire for control, the meaning of personal responsibility, and the struggle to understand why things happen the way they do. These themes, while packaged within a fantastical storyline about a man who receives God's powers, spoke directly to viewers from diverse backgrounds. Whether viewed through the lens of faith, personal development, humor, or simply entertainment, Bruce Almighty became a reflective mirror for its audience, offering not just laughs, but moments of genuine introspection. One of the strongest aspects of the film's connection with its audience is the relatability of Bruce Nolan as a character. Many people saw themselves in Bruce, an ambitious individual stuck in a job that doesn't fulfill him, feeling overlooked, unappreciated, and powerless. His early frustration with the world when he angrily declares that God is doing a poor job running things is a sentiment that many viewers quietly or openly resonate with. Life often feels chaotic and unfair, and Bruce's anger at being dealt a seemingly poor hand in life echoes common human experiences. This emotional grounding allowed the audience to sympathize with Bruce, even as he engaged in over-the-top antics. Audiences across generations found something meaningful in Bruce's journey from self-pity to self-awareness. Older viewers often reflected on the message about humility and responsibility, recognizing the film's emphasis on personal growth. Younger viewers, including teenagers and college students at the time, were drawn to the comedic elements and Carr's high energy performance, but many also connected with the idea of struggling to find one's purpose and feeling misunderstood by the world. The blend of existential frustration and comedic fantasy created an entry point for both lighthearted enjoyment and deeper contemplation. The religious aspects of the film invited varied interpretations, depending on individual beliefs. Yet it was precisely this openness that allowed the film to reach a wide audience. For people of faith, the film's portrayal of God as patient, kind, and gently guiding rather than punishing, offered a refreshing and comforting interpretation of the divine. The idea that God listens, allows free will, and wants people to grow through their choices was seen by many as an affirming message. Some Christian viewers found the film inspiring in its depiction of prayer, the importance of selflessness, and the emphasis on love over control. Meanwhile, non-religious or spiritual, but not religious audiences often appreciated the metaphorical aspects of the story, seeing God more as a symbol of conscience, personal responsibility, or the universe itself. This flexibility and interpretation helped the film bridge ideological divides and speak to viewers with varying belief systems. A particularly powerful moment for many viewers comes when Bruce, after having misused his powers and lost the love of grace, finally surrenders his will and prays, not for power or success, but for someone else's happiness. This scene, simple in its delivery, had a profound impact on many who saw it as a turning point, not just for the character, but as a message about letting go. The vulnerability in Bruce's prayer, "I want her to be happy, even if it's not with me," struck a chord with audiences who had experienced heartbreak, sacrifice, or the struggle to put someone else's needs above their own. Many viewers have recounted the scene as the moment the film moved from being simply funny to being unexpectedly profound. The film's emotional undercurrent also resonated with people going through difficult times. Viewers dealing with unemployment, broken relationships, grief, or feelings of spiritual emptiness found comfort in Bruce's arc. The message that growth comes through loss and that love often means stepping back rather than asserting control offered hope and healing. Over the years, people have shared stories of how Bruce Almighty helped them reframe their perspectives, embrace gratitude, or renew a sense of faith, or purpose. This emotional resonance gave the film a kind of timelessness that extended its relevance well beyond its release year. For many in the audience, the film also provoked reflection on the nature of power. When Bruce begins to use his powers for personal gain, parting traffic, winning a promotion, manipulating the romantic interest of Grace, it may initially seem like harmless fun. But as the consequences of his actions mount, viewers are invited to ask themselves how they would behave with absolute control. This self-questing aspect made the film an internal dialogue for many people. Would I be any better than Bruce? If I had the ability to bend the world to my will, what would I do with the power to change things? And would I be responsible enough to think beyond myself? Another way audiences connected with Bruce Almighty was through its treatment of prayer. The email inbox filled with millions of prayers became a metaphor for the overwhelming demands placed on anyone in a position of authority or care. Many viewers saw this as an allegory for parenthood, leadership, or even social responsibility, understanding that being in control is not about fixing everything, but about listening, showing compassion, and recognizing limits. The film humorously yet poignantly suggests that even divine power is not a shortcut to happiness, and that the human journey is meant to be lived with choice, struggle, and humility. The humor in the film also played a major role in making its ideas palatable. Audiences appreciated that they could laugh while thinking deeply, and that the film didn't take itself so seriously that it became preachy or heavy-handed. Jim Carrey's comedic style allowed for moments of levity even during serious reflections, making the messages more accessible. Laughter became a bridge between the audience and the film's more significant themes, disarming skepticism and opening emotional pathways. Over time, the film became a rewatchable favorite for many people. Some returned to it during personal hardships or times of questioning, finding renewed insight or comfort in its familiar characters and uplifting resolution. The scene in which Bruce recognizes the quiet miracles of life, people helping others, everyday acts of love and kindness, resonated with audiences who longed to see meaning in the small, often overlooked moments of daily life. In a world that often feels chaotic and overwhelming, this message that the divine can be found in ordinary gestures was both comforting and inspiring. Generationally, Bruce Almighty also helped open up conversations between parents and children, 4 families watching together. The film provided an entry point for discussing values, beliefs, and life lessons in a non-threatening and entertaining way. Kids laughed at the jokes, while parents appreciated the moral undercurrents. This multi-generational appeal helped cement its place as a movie night staple and a film that could be enjoyed across different ages and backgrounds. Bruce Almighty centers on the transformation of its protagonist, Bruce Nolan, a struggling television reporter who undergoes a profound journey of self-discovery, responsibility, and humility. The film's character development is rich and carefully layered, exploring how Bruce's personality, motivations, and relationships evolve as he grapples with the extraordinary gift and burden of wielding divine powers. While Bruce's arc is the film's primary focus, several supporting characters also experience meaningful development, each contributing to the narrative's emotional depth and thematic resonance. At the beginning of the film, Bruce Nolan is portrayed as a deeply flawed, yet fundamentally likable character. He is ambitious, often brash, and prone to impatience and cynicism. His frustration with his career stagnation and personal setbacks fuels a simmering resentment toward life itself, and more specifically toward God. Self-centeredness is evident in his interactions with coworkers, his casual dismissal of his girlfriend Grace's concerns, and his frequent outbursts. This initial characterization is crucial because it establishes the personal obstacles Bruce must overcome, his arrogance, lack of empathy, and misunderstanding of true power. Bruce's relationship with Grace initially appears strained, but filled with genuine affection beneath the surface. Grace is portrayed as patient, kind, and spiritually grounded, providing a moral compass that contrasts sharply with Bruce's turbulent mindset. Their relationship highlights themes of love, forgiveness, and sacrifice, and Grace's presence humanizes Bruce's journey, reminding viewers that his transformation is not just about gaining power, but learning how to love and be loved in return. The inciting incident in the story, God giving Bruce his powers as a test, sets the stage for the main character arc. At first, Bruce revels in his newfound abilities, using them selfishly to exact revenge, boost his career, and manipulate situations to his advantage. This period of experimentation with divine power reveals Bruce's immaturity and lack of foresight. His choices lead to chaos, loss, and unintended consequences, illustrating the central moral lesson that power without wisdom or compassion is destructive. Throughout this process, Bruce's character experiences a series of challenges that push him toward growth. Key moments include the realization that he cannot control everything or make everyone happy, his confrontation with the limits of his power, and the painful loss of Grace's trust and love. These events force Bruce to confront his own flaws and begin the difficult process of self-reflection. The film uses these setbacks effectively to show that true growth often comes from failure and humility. Bruce's turning point arrives when he prays not for personal gain, but for Grace's happiness, even if that means losing her. This act of selflessness signifies a profound shift in Bruce's character, from selfishness to empathy, from control to surrender. It is this moment that humanizes Bruce most deeply, making his character relatable and his growth authentic. His prayer symbolizes a move from external manipulation of the world to internal transformation. By the film's climax and resolution, Bruce emerges as a changed man. He understands that divine power is not about fulfilling personal desires, but about serving others and appreciating life's imperfections. Bruce's newfound humility and love enable him to rebuild his relationship with Grace and approach life with gratitude and responsibility. The final scenes emphasize this evolved Bruce, one who recognizes the quiet miracles around him and accepts that he is part of a larger interconnected world. Supporting characters also undergo development that enriches the story. Grace's character evolves from a patient partner who endures Bruce's flaws to a strong, independent woman who makes difficult choices when Bruce's behavior becomes destructive. Her departure forces Bruce to face the consequences of his actions and deepens the emotional stakes. Grace's journey highlights themes of forgiveness and boundaries within relationships. Morgan Freeman's portrayal of God is another crucial element in the character dynamics. God's character is depicted as wise, compassionate, and gently authoritative. He serves as both mentor and observer, guiding Bruce's transformation without overt interference. God's calm demeanor and occasional humor provide balance to Bruce's volatility and help frame the narrative's moral lessons. The character's subtle development, from a distant figure to a compassionate guide, enhances the story's spiritual dimension. Other supporting roles, such as Bruce's boss, Evan Baxter, provide comic relief, but also reflect different facets of ambition and ego. Evan's interactions with Bruce underscore themes of rivalry and humility, as Evan himself experiences setbacks and growth, especially in the follow-up film, Evan Almighty. Bruce's co-workers and family members round out the world, illustrating how his behavior affects those around him and providing a social context for his journey. The film's narrative structure supports the character development by aligning key plot points with moments of personal growth. The pacing allows Bruce's transformation to unfold gradually, giving weight to his mistakes and triumphs. This progression keeps audiences emotionally engaged and invested in Bruce's journey from frustration to enlightenment. Bruce's arc also reflects classic storytelling archetypes, particularly the hero's journey and redemption themes. He begins in an ordinary world marked by dissatisfaction, crosses into the supernatural realm of divine powers, faces trials and temptations, and ultimately returns with new wisdom and maturity. This archetypal structure resonates with audiences on a subconscious level, providing a familiar yet fresh narrative that balances humor with heartfelt emotion. The film also explores the tension between human free will and divine intervention through Bruce's character arc. Bruce's mistakes emphasize the importance of choice and the responsibility that comes with power, whether human or divine. His journey illustrates that personal growth is an active process requiring self-awareness, empathy, and the courage to change. In addition to moral growth, Bruce undergoes emotional development. His initial cynicism gives way to vulnerability as he confronts his limitations and fears of loss. This emotional honesty is a key factor in making the character believable and sympathetic. Bruce's ability to express genuine remorse, hope, and love by the film's end demonstrates a nuanced portrayal of human complexity. Bruce Almighty's character development is also strengthened by Jim Carrey's performance, which captures the character's emotional range from comedic bravado to heartfelt sincerity. Carr's physicality and timing add layers to Bruce's personality, making his transformation palpable and engaging. The supporting cast, including Jennifer Aniston's portrayal of Grace, complements this dynamic by embodying the emotional stakes of the Black relationship. The costume and set design in Bruce Almighty play a crucial role in establishing the film's tone, setting, and characterization. Though the movie primarily unfolds in contemporary, everyday environments, the careful attention to detail in clothing, makeup, and location design enriches the narrative by subtly reinforcing the personalities of the characters, the social dynamics at play, and the thematic contrast between the ordinary and the divine. Starting with costumes, Bruce Nolan's wardrobe reflects his character's professional yet somewhat unpolished persona. As a television reporter, Bruce typically wears business casual attire, collared shirts, jackets, and ties, but with an informal looseness that matches his frustrated and somewhat rebellious attitude. His clothes are never overly flashy or perfectly tailored, which helps establish him as an everyman figure. This wardrobe choice makes Bruce relatable to audiences. He looks like someone who's trying to keep it together, but is clearly struggling with the pressures of daily life. Over the course of the film, subtle changes in Bruce's appearance mirror his character development. When he first acquires divine powers, his demeanor shifts along with his confidence, and his clothes reflect a more polished and self-assured style. However, this transformation is not overly extravagant, emphasizing that his change is more internal than external. Jennifer Aniston's character, Grace Connolly, is dressed in a way that reflects her warm, grounded personality. Grace's costumes are practical, comfortable, and approachable, soft colors, simple cuts, and casual styles that convey her nurturing and spiritual nature. Her wardrobe serves as a visual counterpoint to Bruce's more chaotic energy, underscoring her role as his emotional anchor and moral compass. Grace's clothing helps communicate her kindness and strength without resorting to cliches or exaggerated femininity. Morgan Freeman's portrayal of God is supported by a minimalist yet iconic costume design. His character consistently wears neutral-toned, simple clothing, usually beige or white sweaters and slacks, which suggests calmness, wisdom, and an unassuming presence. The costume subtly reinforces the film's portrayal of God as approachable and relatable rather than distant or majestic. This choice helps ground the divine character in the human world, making him a mentor figure rather than an intimidating deity. Supporting characters such as Bruce's boss, Evan Baxter, have costumes that reflect their personalities and social roles. Evan's style is more polished and somewhat flamboyant, suggesting ambition and a competitive streak. The contrast between Evan's sleek appearance and Bruce's more laid-back style visually reinforces their professional rivalry and differing attitudes toward success. Makeup and hairstyling in the film are naturalistic and understated, supporting the everyday realism of the characters. Bruce's somewhat rumpled look and tired eyes visually communicate his stress and dissatisfaction at the beginning of the film. As he undergoes his transformation, subtle adjustments to his grooming reflect his increasing self-confidence and sense of control. Grace's makeup emphasizes her natural beauty, reinforcing her role as the grounded, loving presence in Bruce's life. The set design also plays a key role in contrasting Bruce's ordinary human world with the extraordinary divine realm he temporarily inhabits. Much of the film is set in familiar urban and suburban locations. Bruce's modest apartment, the television studio where he works, Grace's home, the newsroom, and busy city streets. These sets are detailed but not overly stylized, creating an authentic atmosphere that grounds the story in reality. This realistic backdrop allows the supernatural elements to stand out more clearly, making Bruce's divine powers feel more striking against the everyday settings. The newsroom set, where Bruce works as a reporter, is designed to convey the fast-paced, competitive world of broadcast journalism. The space is filled with desks, computers, bright lights, cameras, and bustling staff, reflecting the hectic energy of Bruce's professional life. This environment emphasizes Bruce's ambition and frustration, as well as the pressures that contribute to his initial discontent. The use of modern, somewhat sterile office design contrasts with the warmth and chaos of his personal life, highlighting the dual worlds Bruce navigates. Grace's home is designed to feel warm, inviting, and lived in. It is filled with soft lighting, cozy furniture, and personal touches that communicate comfort and stability. This set visually reinforces Grace's role as a nurturing figure and the emotional center of the film. The contrast between Bruce's often cluttered, tense spaces and Grace's peaceful environment underscores the film's thematic focus on balance between chaos and calm, self-interest and selflessness. Filming locations in Buffalo and New York City also contributed to the film's authentic feel. Urban exteriors, parks, streets, and recognizable landmarks helped situate the story in a believable contemporary America. These real-world locations gave the filmmakers the flexibility to shoot both grounded scenes and more fantastical moments seamlessly. One of the most notable set pieces is the scene where Bruce demonstrates his divine powers in a chaotic traffic jam. The street setting is both realistic and relatable, illustrating the everyday frustrations people face. The way the set is arranged allows for creative use of visual effects, such as parting the traffic and manipulating objects, which contrasts the mundane environment with supernatural occurrences. This blending of normally with the miraculous is a recurring motif in the film's visual storytelling. The special effects themselves, though not elaborate by modern blockbuster standards, are integrated thoughtfully into the set design. The moments when Bruce performs miracles or alters reality are often staged in typical locations, offices, streets, homes, emphasizing that the extraordinary happens within the ordinary. This creative choice enhances the film's theme that divinity and magic are present in everyday life if one is open to seeing them. The film also uses lighting design to support its thematic and narrative shifts. Warm, natural lighting dominates most of the scenes set in Bruce's personal life, creating a welcoming and intimate atmosphere. In contrast, scenes where Bruce wields his powers often have more dramatic lighting with heightened contrast or subtle glow effects, visually signaling the presence of the supernatural. This lighting helps guide the viewer's emotional response and underscores the differences between Bruce's human limitations and his brief divine abilities. In addition, costume and set design work together to support comedic moments. For example, Bruce's exaggerated gestures and antics with his powers are complemented by the everyday settings and props, heightening the humor through contrast. The mundanity of the environment makes Bruce's superhuman action stand out even more, contributing to the film's playful tone. The dialogue and script writing of Bruce Almighty play a pivotal role in shaping the mock film's tone, advancing the narrative, and developing its characters. The screenplay, crafted with a blend of comedy, heartfelt moments, and philosophical reflection, balances humor and depth in a way that engages a broad audience. The writing leverages witty banter, memorable lines, and emotional honesty to explore themes of power, responsibility, and personal growth, all while maintaining a lighthearted and accessible style. At its core, the film's dialogue embodies the personality of its protagonist, Bruce Nolan. Early in the script, Bruce's speech is fast-paced, sarcastic, and often laced with frustration or cynicism. This sharp, quick-witted style captures Bruce's ambition and dissatisfaction with his life. His interactions with coworkers and friends are peppered with humorous quips, snappy comebacks, and playful insults, showcasing his brash charm. This approach not only provides comic relief, but also establishes Bruce as a relatable, flawed character whose flaws are expressed through his language. The script effectively uses humor to explore serious themes without becoming preachy. Many of the funniest moments arise from Bruce's misuse of his divine powers and his attempts to fix everyday annoyances in outrageous ways. The dialogue in these scenes is clever and inventive, often highlighting the absurdity of the situations. For example, Bruce's self-serving wishes, like turning his car into a monster truck or making his boss's hair fall out, are delivered with comedic timing that emphasizes his immaturity and lack of foresight. These moments rely heavily on sharp writing that combines slapstick humor with witty exchanges. Memorable lines and catchphrases from the film have contributed to its lasting popularity. Phrases such as, "Alrighty then," and Bruce's humorous explanations of divine interventions have become part of popular culture. The writing balances these catchphrases so they feel organic rather than forced, allowing the humor to flow naturally from the characters' personalities and situations. This naturalistic dialogue strengthens the audience's connection to the story and makes the film's comedic moments more effective. The screenplay also shines in its portrayal of Bruce's relationship with Grace. Their conversations range from tender and heartfelt to tense and conflicted, revealing the complexity of their bond. The dialogue in these scenes is more measured and emotionally nuanced, offering a contrast to Bruce's otherwise fast-paced and irreverent speech. Through their exchanges, the script explores themes of love, forgiveness, and communication, showing how language can both heal and hurt. Grace's lines often serve as a moral anchor in the story, reminding Bruce and the audience of the importance of compassion and selflessness. Morgan Freeman's character, God, delivers some of the film's most thoughtful and inspiring dialogue. His lines are written with a calm, wise tone that contrasts with Bruce's impulsiveness. The script uses God's dialogue to impart philosophical insights and spiritual lessons, often laced with gentle humor. These moments add depth to the narrative and help balance the film's comedic elements with a sense of gravitas. The writing gives Freeman's character a dignified voice that commands respect while remaining approachable and relatable. The screenplay employs a well-crafted narrative structure using dialogue to build tension, reveal character motivations, and drive the plot forward. Key turning points in the story are often marked by significant conversations such as Bruce's confrontation with God about the responsibilities of power or his heartfelt apologies to Grace. These dialogues are pivotal in showing Bruce's internal conflicts and his gradual transformation. The writing ensures that even the more philosophical or spiritual moments remain engaging and accessible. Through clear, relatable language, the pacing of the dialogue is carefully calibrated to match the film's rhythm. Fast, snappy exchanges dominate the early and comedic scenes, maintaining energy and humor. In contrast, slower, more reflective conversations provide emotional weight during moments of character growth or crisis. This variation keeps the audience engaged and allows the film to balance levity with seriousness effectively. The screenplay's humor also extends to its use of situational and physical comedy, which is often supported by the dialogue. For example, Bruce's attempts to fix the world's problems lead to humorous misunderstandings and chaos with the character's spoken reactions. Adding to the comedy, the writing embraces absurdity without losing emotional grounding, making the humor feel earned rather than gratuitous. The film's dialogue includes moments of meta-commentary and self-awareness, especially regarding Bruce's role as a television reporter and the media industry's influence. These elements add a layer of satire and social critique, giving the script additional texture. Bruce's quips about the news business and his own career frustrations reflect broader themes about ambition, truth, and the search for meaning. One notable aspect of the script is its handling of exposition. The film introduces complex ideas about divine power, free will, and faith without overwhelming the audience. Instead, the screenplay uses dialogue to explain these concepts through Bruce's experiences and conversations with God and grace. This approach makes abstract ideas concrete and relatable, enhancing the film's accessibility. The interactions between Bruce and other secondary characters, such as his boss, Evan Baxter, and co-workers, provide additional comic relief and character contrast. The script uses witty exchanges to highlight Bruce's competitive nature and the dynamics of workplace relationships. These moments enrich the story world and provide a broader social context for Bruce's personal journey. Overall, the writing balances multiple tones, comedy, romance, drama, and spirituality in a cohesive way. The dialogue seamlessly integrates humor with moments of sincerity, allowing the film to address meaningful themes without sacrificing entertainment value. This skillful blending is a testament to the screenplay's quality and contributes to the film's enduring appeal. In conclusion, the dialogue and script writing of Bruce Almighty are central to the film's success. The sharp, witty lines combined with heartfelt conversations create a rich narrative tapestry that engages audiences emotionally and intellectually. The writing captures the complexities of its characters, the humor in everyday struggles, and the profound questions about life and faith. Through its clever and thoughtful script, Bruce Almighty delivers a story that is both entertaining and meaningful. The marketing and promotion strategy for Bruce Almighty was a carefully orchestrated campaign that capitalized on the film's blend of comedy, star power, and universal themes to attract a wide audience. The approach combined traditional advertising methods with innovative tactics that helped the movie stand out in the competitive 2004 summer film season. The promotional efforts emphasized Jim Carrey's comedic appeal. The film's unique premise of an ordinary man granted divine powers and its accessible, feel-good message, all of which contributed to the film's box office success and lasting cultural footprint. One of the foundational elements of the marketing campaign was the use of trailers and television spots that highlighted the film's humor and special effects. The trailers showcased some of the most visually striking and amusing scenes, such as Bruce parting a traffic jam with a gesture or manipulating reality in surprising ways. These clips conveyed the film's playful tone and imaginative storyline without revealing key plot twists, generating curiosity and excitement. The editing of the trailers balanced fast-paced comedic moments with glimpses of the film's emotional core, appealing to both comedy fans and those interested in inspirational themes. Posters and print advertisements played a vital role in Bruce Almighty's promotional strategy. The primary poster image featured Jim Carrey with an exaggerated comedic expression holding a glowing staff reminiscent of divine power. This visual immediately communicated the film's humorous take on spirituality and power, while Carr's recognizable face attracted his established fan base. The tagline, "What if God was one of us?" cleverly referenced a popular song, hinting at the film's premise in a memorable and accessible way. This tagline was used consistently across various promotional materials to reinforce the film's central concept. Television and radio interviews with the cast, especially Jim Carrey and Morgan Freeman, helped generate buzz. Carr's energetic and humorous personality shone through in these appearances, endearing him further to audiences and reinforcing the film's comedic appeal. Freeman's calm and wise presence provided a contrasting tone that highlighted the movie's spiritual dimension. These media interviews gave fans insight into the making of the film, the characters, and the themes, deepening interest and engagement. The marketing team also leveraged the emerging power of online platforms in 2004, using official websites and early cast social media forums to reach younger demographics. The official Bruce Almighty website featured interactive content, character bios, behind-the-scenes footage, and downloadable media, encouraging fans to explore the film's universe. These digital efforts allowed for more immersive marketing experiences, helping build a community around the movie before and after its release. Merchandising was another facet of the promotion, though more limited compared to major franchise films. Items such as t-shirts, posters, and novelty products featuring iconic images or quotes from the film were made available, appealing to fans who wanted to celebrate the B-Day movie's humor and message. These merchandise items served as both promotional tools and revenue sources, helping keep the film in public consciousness beyond its theatrical run. Strategic partnerships and cross-promotions also supported the film's visibility. Bruce Almighty was featured in promotions with fast food chains, radio stations, and retail outlets, creating multiple points of contact with potential viewers. These partnerships helped amplify the marketing reach, ensuring that the film's presence was felt across various consumer touch points. The timing of the film's release was a critical element in the marketing plan. Released in May 2003, Bruce Almighty arrived at the start of the lucrative summer movie season, a period when audiences are particularly eager for entertaining and uplifting films. This timing allowed the movie to capitalize on increased moviegoing traffic and positioned it as a strong contender alongside other major releases. The promotional materials played up the film's broad appeal, making it clear that Bruce Almighty was suitable for a wide demographic, including families, adult-seeking comedy, and viewers interested in inspirational stories. The marketing also emphasized the film's blend of humor and heart, positioning it as more than just a typical comedy. This strategy was reflected in the tone of trailers, print ads, and promotional interviews, which highlighted both the laugh-out-loud moments and the emotional, reflective aspects of the story. This balanced approach helped attract a diverse audience and contributed to positive word of mouth after the film's release. Premiere events and special screenings were part of the promotional efforts as well. These events often included appearances by the cast and crew, photo opportunities, and media coverage that generated early buzz. The premiere of Bruce Almighty was designed to showcase the film's star-studded cast and appeal to press outlets, building anticipation among potential moviegoers. In addition, the film's unique premise, a human given God's powers, lend itself well to discussions and media coverage about spirituality and morality in popular culture. Some promotional interviews and press materials touched on these themes, inviting audiences to consider the deeper questions raised by the film. This aspect of the marketing helped Bruce Almighty distinguish itself from other comedies by promising substance alongside laughs. Despite the strong promotional push, the marketing team was careful not to overpromise or mislead audiences. The campaigns avoided suggesting the film was a pure fantasy or high-concept special effects spectacle, instead emphasizing its relatable characters and humorous yet thoughtful narrative. This honesty in marketing helped manage audience expectations and contributed to the film's positive reception. Social media buzz, although in its early stages at the time, was encouraged through fan sites and discussion forums, which helped sustain interest in Bruce Almighty long after its theatrical release. Fans shared favorite quotes, discussed the film's themes, and recommended it to others, creating grassroots promotion that complemented official campaigns. The use of humor in marketing materials was a key strength. Trailers and posters conveyed the comedic tone effectively, using visual gags and witty taglines that resonated with Jim Carr's established fan base. This humor helped position Bruce Almighty as a must-see comedy while also appealing to viewers looking for feel-good entertainment. Overall, the marketing and promotion of Bruce Almighty were successful in building anticipation, attracting diverse audiences, and supporting the film's commercial achievements. The combination of traditional media, innovative online engagement, star-driven publicity, and strategic timing created a well-rounded campaign that maximized the movie's visibility and appeal. In summary, Bruce Almighty's marketing campaign expertly highlighted the film's unique blend of comedy, spirituality, and star power. Through trailers, posters, interviews, merchandise, and online presence, the promotional efforts built a compelling narrative around the film's concept and characters. This comprehensive strategy helped the movie connect with a wide range of viewers and contributed significantly to its lasting popularity and cultural impact. Bruce Almighty stands out as a unique film in the landscape of early 2000s comedies. Yet, when analyzed in comparison with similar movies and other works by the same director and actors, it reveals interesting contrasts and similarities that highlight its distinctive tone, style, and storytelling approach. This comparative analysis explores how Bruce Almighty fits within broader cinematic trends, how it diverges from or aligns with comparable films that explore themes of power, divinity, and personal growth, and how it relates to the career trajectories of those involved in its creation. One of the most obvious points of comparison is with the 2007 film Evan Almighty, which serves as a loose sequel or spin-off focused on Bruce's rival turned colleague Evan Baxter, played by Steve Carell. While both films share the premise of ordinary men receiving divine powers, Evan Almighty shifts the focus towards a more overtly family-friendly, environmentally conscious narrative. The tone of Evan Almighty is softer and more didactic, emphasizing lessons about stewardship and faith with less of the edgy humor that characterizes Bruce Almighty. Bruce Almighty's comedic style is more irreverent and satirical, relying heavily on Jim Carrey's manic energy and improvisational skills, whereas Evan Almighty embraces a gentler, more straightforward moral message. This difference illustrates how the franchise's thematic concerns evolved, with Bruce Almighty occupying a more adult-oriented space, while Evan Almighty targeted a younger family audience. Comparing Bruce Almighty to other films exploring divine intervention or supernatural power in a comedic context reveals common narrative structures, but also distinct execution styles. For example, films like Oh God, 1977, and The Heavenly Kid, 1985, similarly explore human encounters with God or divine beings, often using humor to examine faith and morality. Bruce Almighty distinguishes itself by centering the story around a flawed, self-centered protagonist whose journey toward humility and wisdom is portrayed through fast-paced comedy and modern cultural references. The film's blend of slapstick, satire, and heartfelt moments gives it a more contemporary and accessible flavor than earlier films, which tended toward gentler humor and more overt religious messaging. Another relevant comparison is with The Mask, 1994, another Jim Carrey film directed by Chuck Russell. While The Mask is more overtly fantastical and comic book inspired, both films showcase Carr's gift for physical comedy and exaggerated facial expressions. However, Bruce Almighty incorporates these elements within a story that is more grounded in real-world settings and concerns such as work frustrations and romantic relationships, rather than pure escapism. This demonstrates how Carrey's versatility as a comedic actor allows him to adapt to different narrative environments, from high-energy fantasy to thoughtful comedy drama. Looking at director Tom Shadyack's broader filmography, Bruce Almighty fits within his oeuvre of comedies that often combine humor with heart and social commentary. Shadyack's earlier works, such as Ace Ventura, Pet Detective 1994, and Liar 1997, also star Jim Carrey and share a similar comedic tone marked by physical humor and emotional undertones. Bruce Almighty elevates this formula by incorporating spiritual themes and a more complex protagonist. Shadyack's direction balances Carrey's energetic style with quieter, reflective moments, creating a film that appeals to a broad audience and stands apart from his earlier, more purely comedic efforts. comparing Bruce Almighty to films with themes of power and responsibility, such as Bruce Almighty's contemporary counterpart Click 2006, also starring Adam Sandler, reveals a common narrative. Interest in how supernatural abilities affect ordinary lives. However, Click leans more into dark comedy and moral lessons about work-life balance, while Bruce Almighty maintains a lighter tone, focused on personal growth through divine intervention. This contrast highlights different approaches filmmakers take to similar ideas shaped by the lead's acting styles and the intended audience. In terms of storytelling, Bruce Almighty uses a classic three-act structure common in both comedies and dramas. Its narrative arc, introducing a protagonist's dissatisfaction, granting extraordinary powers, and guiding him through trials to a transformative realization, is reminiscent of the hero's journey framework. However, the film's execution emphasizes humor and relatability over mythic grandeur, positioning Bruce as a flawed, humorous everyman rather than an epic hero. This approach differentiates the film from more traditional religious or fantasy epics. Visually and stylistically, Bruce Almighty is more conventional compared to high-budget fantasy or supernatural films. Its special effects are modest but cleverly integrated into everyday environments, contrasting with films like The Matrix, 1999, or the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which use extensive CGI and fantastical world-building. This grounded visual style complements the film's theme that divine power exists within the mundane, rather than in otherworldly realms. The film's tone also contrasts with other spiritual comedies that lean heavily into satire or cynicism. Bruce Almighty maintains an overall optimistic and an uplifting spirit, combining comedy with sincere messages about kindness, responsibility, and faith. This tonal balance sets it apart from more cynical or irreverent comedies that critique religion or spirituality, making Bruce Almighty more accessible to audiences of diverse beliefs. In terms of cultural impact, Bruce Almighty's success helped pave the way for other films that blend comedy with spiritual or philosophical themes. It demonstrated that movies could tackle profound ideas within mainstream entertainment without alienating audiences. This blend influenced later films and television shows that explore human flaws and redemption with humor and warmth. Looking at Jim Carrey's career trajectory, Bruce Almighty marked a return to his comedic roots after a period of more dramatic roles in the late 1990s and early 2000s. The film's success reaffirmed Carr's status as a leading comedy actor and showcased his ability to balance physical comedy with emotional nuance. It differs from his earlier works by embedding comedy within a story that explores personal growth and spirituality, broadening his range and appeal. Similarly, Morgan Freeman's portrayal of God in Bruce Almighty added a memorable and iconic role to his diverse filmography. Freeman's calm, authoritative presence lent gravitas to a comedic premise, blending humor with dignity. This role contrasts with Freeman's other notable performances, often in dramas or thrillers, showcasing his versatility and charm. In conclusion, Bruce Almighty occupies a distinctive place within the genre of comedic films dealing with spirituality and supernatural themes. Compared to similar films, it blends humor, heart, and philosophy in a way that feels fresh and relatable. The movie's grounded style, strong performances, and thoughtful script differentiate it from more fantastical or cynical counterparts. And some information about it. How do you like our today's video? Please let us know by commenting, and if you like this video, please like it, share it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.